Now, Bev Harris runs blackboxvoting.org. She's only popping in for about 10, 15 minutes today. And then we're going to have her back on tomorrow in the aftermath and in the days following that to track what's happening in our election process. Because, the establishment doesn't just spend billions of dollars, controlling both candidates so they control the outcome that way. They also obviously have their hands in there, the different power structures, the different management teams of the two parties that want first dibs at the government trough as kingmakers. There is a fight going on to see who can be the CEO of Slavery Incorporated. Two different management teams fighting over who will get the CEO job of Slavery Incorporated, as I said 12 years ago in the film Waking Life. And that's more true today than it's ever been. And so Bev has got all of her moles out there tracking things around the country. What type of anomalies are we already seeing, Bev Harris?
Well, I want to actually jump ahead, if you don't mind, Alex, to what people can do this particular today. I'll tell you what we're doing, okay, because that's going to pull in the reports of the anomalies directly from the field, from the people who are out there. I am in contact with a network of different organizations, both Ron Paul supporters, progressives, people from all political walks of life, which is what we want, ordinary citizens from all political walks of life, who are reporting in with what they see, and also, vetted stories that they may see on local news or local radio. There's 3 different places for them to report it, and then what I'm doing is then pushing it out again to more media sources. So if you're a Facebook fan, there's a Facebook page that's very active called Occupy Elections. There's also the Black Box Voting Facebook page. There's also Watch the Vote 2012. And we have people monitoring those pages. So if you post on those pages, we've got people monitoring those and kind of distilling out the cream of the crop and getting it to me. There's also, if you want to make sure it's permanently archived, because, on Facebook it just sort of rolls off the page and then you never see it again. On blackboxvoting.org, there's a button at the top that says go to your state, and you simply push that and go to the location where it happens and post it there, and it will stay there for years so that people can track what's happening in different places. And then what I'll be doing is taking the most important information and feeding it right back out to the media, like you, so that we can start having a method of flowing this information more systematically. Because I feel, as you mentioned yesterday, we're getting close to the tipping point with American public's awareness. And so we need to get the information out there as efficiently as we can this year.
Again, Bev Harris is our guest. I've got a bunch of special guests tonight. Gerald Celente, Max Kaiser, Wayne Madsen, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, Lou Rockwell, Nomi Prinz, Webster Tarpley. But we've got some spaces in there tonight, Bev, so I hope that we can, if there's some breaking news, we'll be tracking blackboxvoting.org, showing it on the TV transmission. Right. But hopefully you can pop in.
The phone and call me if you got a slot that you want to, and I'll see. Of course, I'm really busy, and I've got not just media, but I've got all kinds of.
Sure, you got to track it. Sure. I'm just saying, if there's any big breaking news, we'll be touching base with you.
Call. I'd be happy to jump on if we can. If we can match up our schedules,
sure.
Synchronize our watches.
What about the classic thing of people showing up on even local elections? We're seeing this, and trying to vote no on a bond proposal, but it votes yes instead and just says that's your vote.
Yeah, that's a programming. It's a feature of the programming. I don't care what the voting machine vendors say or the election officials when they say, oh, it needs to be recalibrated. No, it is only doing what it's programmed to do. If you show up and you vote no, and it says yes on the screen, a programmer has put in there to report the wrong result. And sometimes if you override it several times, then it knows, okay, this person means this. But that's just a classic symptom of a corrupted voting machine.
And just to be clear, they don't have to steal it every time. They have it programmed to shave what it needs. So most people are like, hey, it worked fine for me, but then only certain people does it do that to.
Yeah, classic election tampering is done by insiders, and it involves shaving the vote. So it's not 100%. It's just a percentage, and that's why you and I may disagree on this, but I think it is helpful to vote because you can, shaving will only go so far in most cases, and you can override that if enough votes show up, or if stronger than the person who put in the algorithm expected it to be.
Well, sure. This is a complex issue. People say, Alex, you're saying go out and vote, but then you're saying it's a fraud. Well, even if it's rigged, I don't have to go in a casino that's rigged, but my country's been taken over by foreign banking cartels that publicly brag about it, who've been caught in all these other frauds and fractional reserve banking and selling bad derivatives that they knew were scams. And so by voting and being involved, from what I've read and what you've said, it's very hard for them to steal a landslide. Also, you're now engaging, and you're in there to continue to report on the fraud you're seeing, and we're gaining headway in the polls, as you said, 80 to 90%, depending on the poll, now know the fraud is real. 10 years ago, it was the opposite number, and so we engage them over and over again to discredit their fraudulent system and restore the system. And just briefly, and then we'll get an update tonight, a bigger update tomorrow, Bev Harris, and we'll be following blackboxvoting.org. What would be a good election system that's pretty much bulletproof?
Well, you have four things you need to be able to authenticate: who can vote, the counting of the vote, and the chain of custody. So that's the voter list, the poll list, the counting system, and the chain of custody. Ideally, you want it counted in public, by hand in many cases. It doesn't matter if it's by hand. It has to be a method that's in public. So it's not the mechanism that counts. In public, before it travels anywhere. You don't want votes that are out of the public eye. You don't want them traveling from place to place before they're counted. And you need to be able to know who voted and who's able to vote. So it's not really as complicated as people make it. Pretty much all election fraud falls into those four categories. And it's not like they're going to limit themselves to one category to tamper with an election. They'll do whatever works and whatever they get access to.
Sure. I mean, it's real simple. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have clear ballots, paper, at the smallest little precinct unit. It's publicly counted in front of everyone with all sides there. Then that's literally posted on the wall and then tallied in the precinct itself. So you have a public number, and then all those are tallied publicly. And then everyone is there aware of who really won. And if there is any fraud at the top, there is a chain all the way down so you can reconstruct what happened very, very quickly. Instead, they sell it as, oh, that takes too long, and that can be defrauded. Let's just have a black box with wires going into it, owned by foreign companies and people, and we'll just tell you who won.
Yeah, and by the way, if people are going out, the best time to go out and observe and catch them in the act, whether you voted or not, the best time is immediately after the polls close, okay? Because that's when the stuff happens. At the polling places, they're tallying things up and running results and sticking ballots in boxes and deciding what they're going to put seals on. And at the central tabulation facility, they're bringing everything in. And if you go and videotape, and they tell you you can't, then what you do is you videotape them telling you you can't. Videotape the obstruction to your right to observe. If they get, they get aggressive, I guess, sit down, keep your voice low so that they can't possibly misunderstand and claim that you were being aggressive. So you just sit down, lower your voice, modulate it, and capture them on video being obstructive to your right to oversee. And get that to YouTube, and good things will happen.
Well, Bev, we'll get an update from you by tonight, and then obviously tomorrow we'll know more about hot spots of potential fraud going on. Right. And we'll talk to you then. Thank you so much, Bev Harris.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, there she goes.
Every 4 years, the United States of America hears the drumbeat of billions of campaign dollar attack ads, meaningless debate with empty analysis and poll after poll after poll. This can only mean one thing. It's time to pick our globalist puppet leader.
We're going to be left with a choice of a lesser of two evils. And I'm saying I don't go out with evils. I don't deal with evils. I don't do business with evils. I don't hang out with evils. Why would I vote for an evil to run my life or run my country?
Will it be globalist puppet A or puppet B?
They continue to vote for these Democrats and Republicans, the people that are wrecking our country, and yet they still vote for them.
Unlike North Korea and China, we Americans have the illusion of choice this November 6th.
I think that a lot of votes are going to be stolen.
I don't know how you could possibly have voter fraud when your son owns the voting machines.
1.4 million votes were lost, spoiled as they call them in the biz, through these so-called glitches.
The choice is not up to you. Which management team from Slavery Incorporated will run our country into oblivion for the next 4 years? Tune in to Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.tv this Tuesday, November 6th, as another meaningless pageant is played out.